Hello and welcome to day 25. Merry Christmas. If you're not one who celebrates Christmas, that's fine. I hope you're enjoying a day with family and or friends. I will say that today, because it is Christmas and my family, we do celebrate, I decided to do a nativity scene for our painting today. So if that's not something that interests you, this video may not be the best for you unless you want to get a quick rundown on maybe a little bit of creating some form and stuff of bodies. We're doing a faceless style portrait. This is a very quick, not super detailed, not realistic painting. It's a fun way, I think, to add, I don't know, to create people and make something a little personal for somebody, or something without it having to take hours. And because realistic paintings can be very, very time consuming. I do those as well, but it would take way too long to do a video. And especially for this, specifically for nativity scene, we don't know what they look like. But everybody knows that if you see something like this set up, you know what it is, what it's supposed to be. And so you don't need detailed facial features. And you can do the same thing with pictures of like your family and friends. As long as you get the shapes and colors and stuff of their clothes and their outfits and their way their body's positioned, you can kind of give the idea of who it's supposed to be without needing detailed facial expressions. And so I thought this would be a fun, quick little thing to do. So we're going to jump right in because I do want it to be fairly quick. It's the holidays. I want everybody to be able to go spend time with their families. And if you're not watching it on Christmas because you're spending time with your family, that's fine too. I completely understand. I'm not filming this on Christmas because I'm going to be spending time with my family. So do it whenever works for you or not at all, whichever you prefer. So I'm going to just do a quick rough sketch of just basic shapes. And I know it might seem like a lot, but it's really not too big a deal. So we're going to we're going to put the manger right around here. I'm just doing a big oval shape, very rough. Like I'm sketching very roughly. And I want a little section here where his head will be, and then the body. And we'll fill all that in with the details in a bit. I'm just going to sketch like a wooden manger type setup here. And then crosses at the bottom for the legs. Nothing too detailed, nothing too serious. And then over here, I start just so I have an idea of where I want everything to go with her hands. Very basic in prayer type position. And then we're going to have an arm come out here and up. Very roughly sketching. We got her waist down here. And then we're going to have it come down to where she's kneeling. And I did kind of paint her a little farther away, I think, this time, but you get the idea. All right, and then this one, her arm is further back, so you don't see as much of that arm. We just get a little hint of it. And then we're going to have a little circle for her face. I do think I may have made her stand up too tall. Hang on. Sorry. If you've already sketched, hopefully yours is looking better. This is how when I'm sketching on the paper just like this, trying to do something quick, I do have to kind of make some adjustments occasionally. I want her knees to come right around here. Put her waist right around there, which would put her hands in prayer around the same spot. Okay. I think the problem is that I'm putting them, too far that way, and they need to come over here more for this to make sense. Okay. We're going to put her face right around here which I think makes more sense. Okay, so then I'm just sketching roughly arm. And then we have this head covering that she's wearing. It's going to come down the front here, and it folds over a little bit, and it goes over her shoulders and down to behind her there. Okay. Sorry. Okay, and again, we're just doing the outline. Details will be added when we paint. Folds and all that stuff will be done then. Okay, and so then we're going to come over here. We know Joseph is going to be standing. Get his head in there. He's got his arms up. A hand sticking out here, maybe a bit. His sleeves, they always seem to hang really, really low. So we'll include that. And then just draping cloth all the way down. It's a bit cinched here at the waist. We've got a nice little staff running there. And we'll put his hand on it and then drape his cloth there as well. Okay, so very rough, not a lot of details, but enough. Whoops, oh, my pencil's losing its lead. This one, eraser doesn't cover it. Okay, but anyway, yes, enough detail just to give the impression of what's going on in this photo. Painting. I can't talk. And so now I'm going to lighten my sketch just a bit, because again, we want it to be light enough that we can see, but dark enough that we can see the lines so we know what we're doing and where everything goes, but light enough that it doesn't show through our paint unless we want that sketchy look. And that's entirely up to you. That is something people do. Okay, now to make this kind of a loose, I didn't use this tiny, tiny brush. I used a medium-sized brush here, and so I'm going to move that slightly out of the way, trying to keep it so we can still look at it, but I don't want it in the way. Okay. The first thing I painted, you can really bounce around it, it doesn't really matter. We're going to let areas dry. If they blend in a little together, that just gives it a more loose style, so it's not a big deal. I started with some raw umber and or quinacridone gold to make the hay. And I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that, and I am just gonna scratch in, like really kind of messy, around where we drew the lines for the head and body. And I want it to be kind of rough. There can be areas that are slightly darker, areas that are slightly lighter. So it looks like it's actually hay. We want it to stick out, so we don't want a smooth edge on the outside. We want it to look like hay pieces are sticking out. It can be darker at the bottom near where the baby will lay. Okay, yeah, just swatchy, messy. We can always plop in some more here in a bit if we need to. No, it doesn't matter. We can even have a little bit coming up in front because it would probably look that way in real life. I'm gonna mix some sepia and burnt umber to make a nice brown for the wood of the manger. And we're just gonna go across like there's some slats here. It does not need to be perfect. Again, the looser it is, the more it'll fit the theme. It will all make sense when we don't have faces and whatnot. It will kind of go with that theme. It doesn't need to be a detailed manger, because then it kind of throws everything off. If we have a detailed manger and then faceless people, it's kind of best to keep the whole thing kind of loose. So there we go. I'll come back to the baby in swaddled clothes in a bit. I'm gonna go ahead, oh, excuse me, sorry, there's something in my mouth. I'm gonna do a little bit of a skin tone. You can do whatever skin tone you want. I know there's, what is it? Debates about how dark their skin tone would have been for where they lived and when. We just want to kind of indicate that there's a face there in some form or another. Trying to make mine kind of maybe a slightly darker color. And I'm just filling in the areas that I know I don't want to get other color in, because it is supposed to be skin tone. So faces, neck, hands, that kind of thing. It's just because with the pencil line it's kind of light. This will make it easier to remember not to fill all this in with the clothing color and other things, especially like where hands are. It can get a little bit tricky. And so I want to make sure that we have the hands on here before we move on to the other bits. Okay. Oh, and the baby's face. I don't fill it on all the way. I leave it so that it's like his head is wrapped in the blanket as well. I don't know that that's technically how that would be, but I haven't swaddled a baby in a long time. But maybe he has a hat or a cloth or something. And I'm sure they swaddled differently back then. It's however you want it to be, but I feel like it looks more real. And then we don't have to worry about adding hair or any of that stuff. We just have the blanket wrapped around his head, which is what I did on this one. You can see some white and then a little bit of shadow there. So that's just keeping it simple. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, and so now we're gonna bounce around and do just the clothing. And we start with just a basic layer of the color you want. I was looking at a reference photo of like a statue nativity scene to get the colors and kind of the positioning for them. And so they have Joseph in like a brown, light brown type outfit. So I mixed something using some of my Phthalo and some of the Sepia just to make it kind of a neutral, light, kind of like a canvasy type color. But you can definitely make it whatever color you want. It is your painting. Just be careful around the skin tones. We don't want to get too close and have them bleed. We didn't use a lot of paint, so they should be somewhat dry, but you just never know. It takes time sometimes for these things to dry, and better safe than sorry. And so right now it looks a little funny. It's like a blob because we're just putting in the color, not worrying about shadows or any of that stuff yet. Kind of just throwing it on, somewhat messy. There we go. Yeah. And so we can touch up some details here in a bit. Okay, and then for Mary, I used the cadmium red mixed with a little bit of the Perylene green to make that shadowy red, that muted color. I really liked how that looked. So that is what I did for her dress outfit type thing. It's different for, she's got this head covering, which in the reference I used was blue, and I really liked that, so I think I'm going to stick with that. But again, you can make it whatever color you want it to be, since it is your painting. And again, we're not worrying too much about details just yet. She's sitting behind the manger there. And it almost looks like she's floating, but she's just further back. You could make it come down a little bit more, but we don't want to do it too big or her legs are going to look quite wide compared to the rest of her. Okay, and if you want, you can go ahead and start on the head covering. Just be careful when you get to the edges where that blue is, or that red is, because it might blend in a bit. So I used this, what is this? Where's my, sorry, Phthalo blue, green shade. As my base color, I actually added a little bit of, I want to say, soda light, just to give it a darker tone slightly. And some water to make it lighter. This is not exactly the same as the one I used before, because I mix all my colors as I'm using them, and so they're not always the same colors that they were. Can be a problem sometimes. If you want the exact color, you just gotta kind of play around. Try them out until you get what you need. But for this purposes, I don't mind that it's not exact. And we just got this on here. Okay. Very, very basics. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the staff that he's holding with a nice dark brown, using the Sepia and burnt Sienna. Just kind of wobble it down. Avoid his hand, because his hand would be in front of the staff. And then you can see a bit of it back here. In a straight line, as much as possible. There we go. I'm also going to use this dark color for his hair. And for this, I just kind of played around. I went around his head, filled it in. They had long hair back then. I don't actually know, I haven't seen very many depictions of Jesus, not Jesus, sorry, Joseph. But I assume longer hair, mustache, beard. And we're not putting details of face, but you can give like a little bit of the facial hair that gives a little more indication of what's going on there. So, yeah. Yeah. And then his clothes are probably dry enough that we can start working on those shadows using that darker color as well. It's always going to be dark here in the middle of the sleeve, there and here. Okay. And then just adding fold lines. So here where his arms are, where it drapes down here, there's some fold lines. The reference photo that I was using had drapery up at the front a bit, and then his outfit was like cinched together at the waist. And then adding these bits there, and then it just drapes in different lines down the front here. All right. We can even add a little bit more just throughout here. Various shades of the color. Oops, it's a little dark. I didn't mean to do that. I just want to lift a little. There we go. Lighten it up a bit. And honestly, he looks like I probably could have made him taller if I started a little too big, I think. He looks like a little short. His waist is at around the same space as Mary's, and that doesn't quite make sense overall. So if I were to redo this, I would sketch better. I actually did his proportions a little better here, I think. But It's okay. It is what it is. We're gonna go with it. And so let's add some shadows on her head covering. I'm gonna use a little bit more of the Sodalite Genuine and maybe even some more of the Phthalo blue just to get a darker shade of what we used. And I'm gonna fill it in darker here around her face. Here it comes out like a fold. There's a fold there. And then just some draping along the way. It kind of folds along this way here. I think that needs to be washed. Okay. And yeah. So just hints of the fold lines, and then we'll do the same thing with our red, dark red color. I'm just going to get a kind of darker version of that color for those folds. And we're going to go with the fold of her arm, under her arm here a little bit, down here. That arm is going to go up. These probably could be a little bit smaller. My lines are getting a little big. But then it's going to drape down. It's going to be darker here. And come all the way up to the front here and bunch over and then wrap around. And the fold lines just give an idea of what's going on in which direction her clothes are laying. The reference what I was using didn't have her in the right position, so I'm kind of having to guess here. I'm sure we could do better if we had a good reference photo of somebody kneeling in that specific position. But overall, this is what we got to work with. The only other thing that I didn't do I got a little bit of a darker brown, not too much, but kind of separate her hands here. Show that they're two separate things. And then I would maybe do a little like under her neck, just to separate those a little bit. Here he's kind of already got the separation because of the beard. But lastly, I am going to use a liner brush for this part just because it's a small area. We're just going to use a little bit of a gray, using either like the Sodalite and the Sepia or something. And we're just going to draw in some little shadow lines so it looks like this is a blanket that's folded on the baby. Just kind of sprinkle them in there. You could go back and add some more details, a few details here to the hay and everything else, but this is the basics of our quick, rough, kind of loose nativity scene. Anyway, thank you guys for painting with me. I hope you had fun. I hope you're enjoying the holidays. And if you're still with me, I will see you tomorrow for day 26. Thanks, y'all. Bye.